I was counting expired files. That was my night. A desk lamp, a stack of boxes, a city that slept wrong. I had a coffee gone cold and a thumb scar I kept picking at. Then Jonas pounded on my door. He never pounded. He was the quiet landlord who fixed the heater and kept his distance. His shirt was torn. His face had that hunted look I have seen in war zones and in family kitchens at midnight. He did not stop at hello. He shoved something into my hand, a folded note. He did not sit. He was shaking. "Do not get on the downtown line," he said. "Wait until 3. I blinked. My thumb bled. My brain lagged. What did he mean? He looked like a man who had been made to wait for something awful. He said the time again. He said I would know why by noon. He left without answering why. My normal was neat work. I logged veteran service claims. I read testimonies that had lost their shape. I filed. I cross-referenced. I kept voices on paper. Paper makes a lie feel final. It makes truth look tidy. The clock on my desk read 10:23, a little later than usual. An ordinary night, until the paper in my palm felt like an accusation. My mind raced. What did Jonas mean? He had no cause to fear trains. He barely left his building. The note was short, the handwriting jagged. 3 words, "You will understand." I tucked it into my jacket. I told myself I would leave at 9. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I would run a quick errand that put me nowhere near the downtown line. My phone vibrated with spam and with habit. I ignored both. Then a notification I could not ignore. A short video sent from an unknown number. A grainy camera view of a station. The caption was one word: noon. My heart thundered. My hands were steady in a way my heart was not. I reached for my keys. I am not a soldier anymore. I left that life with scars that do not show. My uniform is a sweater and a security badge that grants me access to sealed records. My job is Veterans Affairs Records Specialist. I read lies and try to sort them from the truth. The wound is my brother Miles. He vanished 3 years ago. One night he left a bar and never came home. Police wrote it as a missing person file and then a dead end. I kept asking. I kept finding gaps. A call went unanswered at 2:10 a.m. A taxi never recorded his name. A witness said he left with 2 men who did not exist in any registry. The last time I saw him, he touched my cheek and said something I could not understand. He leaned in and mouthed a single sentence that sounded like a warning. He would never finish it. He disappeared before the words could land. My life after that is method, files, routines, a steady, quiet grief that I fold neatly each night and put in the back drawer. I became a man who counts things to drown the hollows the loss left. Then the creep started. The first was a misplaced letter, a bill in my kitchen with a stamp I did not recognize. The second was a call with static and the faint sound of a train. The third was the elevator camera that blinked at me with a slightly different angle the week after I checked it. A small thing, a note jammed in the mailbox that read, "Saw you Tuesday." A light in my apartment flickered 3 times at 2:10 a.m. My files started showing timestamps that did not match the time I had entered them. Someone was testing my rhythm. I told myself the test was sickness, but fear tastes like iron. My blood ran cold at patterns. I felt watched. I felt baited. Jonas's warning lived in my jacket. My hands kept finding it. My mind wanted to throw it away. My fingers refused. My unresolved wound sang under every small noise. Miles's face appeared in reflections. The unanswered sentence haunted my sleep. I had a queue of statements I had never said. I had to know why. I left the office early. I walked a street that smelled of rain and burnt coffee. I told myself I was doing errands. I told myself that if something happened at noon, I would be nowhere near it. I lied to myself until my mouth tasted like copper. At 12:59, my phone lit with an unknown caller. It showed a badge, a government seal. I answered. "This is Agent Carver," he said, "Department of Homeland. We need you to remain where you are. You are a person of interest." My throat closed. My mind dropped into a pool. "What?" I said. I did not feel calm. "There has been an explosion on the downtown line," he said. "A targeted device, several casualties." My hands went numb. A train, a device, the note in my pocket, Jonas's warning. "You were recorded entering the train at 11:52, he said. "Your biometrics were used to access a maintenance lock at Platform 3. Your card unlocked the barrier at 11:45. Your IP registered an account used to purchase a ticket under a false name at 11:30. I felt the floor tilt. My face went pale. My badge hummed against my chest. The world became a tight fist. "You need to tell us where you were between 11:15 and 12:20, Carver said. "You need to account for your movements." I thought of the note. I thought of Jonas. I thought of Miles. I told a string of half-truths. I told them about a file I had to double-check. I said I walked errands. I said nothing that fit their timestamps. "We are dispatching a unit," Carver said. "Do not leave. We will come to you." The voice was soft and final. The ticking clock had expired. The event had occurred. The city had a hole. They were not only accusing me of being in the wrong place, they were saying I had caused it. The reversal came fast. I changed from a man who avoided a train to the man they wanted to blame. My files were not proof. They were evidence in a case I had never known I was in. My logs were manipulated. My credentials were used like a stolen face. Someone had made me the villain. I slid down the wall and let the phone fall into my lap. My mind raced. What if this is Miles all over again? What if I was set up to disappear the way he had? My chest contracted. The past and the present braided. If you want to know what Agent Carver told me next, subscribe and comment below, I would say, if this were a channel that traded on cliffhangers. But I am telling you now. He said we had a warrant. He said we had footage. He said we were on our way. My building's hallway light blinked. I heard footsteps in the stairwell. My hand closed around the note in my pocket. Jonas had told me to wait. Jonas had told me not to board the train. My mind reached for a plan. I had none. I had fear and a file cabinet of grief. I had Jonas. I had an inheritance I did not yet know about. Jonas returned before the agents. He came in without knocking. He moved like a man who had rehearsed this entrance. His eyes were not wild now.
They were precise. "They will come for you," he said. "Not to help, to collect. They are tidy about it." I stared and felt something like trust try to grow in the center of my sternum. Trust has a taste like scorched bread when you have been hungry for it a long time. He sat. He handed me a small black case that felt heavy with silence. Inside was an encrypted data drive. It had a label that read, "Miles." My breath left me. I knew that handwriting. I knew the curve of the letters, the way you know a scar. Jonas spoke in a voice that demanded honesty. "Miles owed me words," he said. "Miles wanted someone to have them if anything happened." "The cavalry is the enemy," Jonas said. "The agencies that ring in suits and badges are not arriving to rescue you. They are arriving to frame you and close the file." He told me what I already felt in my bones. The agency that had my logs in their system had ties to a private contractor. The contractor had contracts with media outlets and with a firm that profited when chaos replaced oversight. A pattern of profit from panic. My hands shook as he pushed a thumb drive across the table. The corners of the drive were dented like it had gone through a fight. Jonas said Miles had left him this. He had asked Jonas to deliver it if Jonas ever feared for his life. I felt Miles in that room like a light you can walk past and still warm your hand from. The note had his rhythm. The drive came with a message. Jonas played it on an old tablet. Miles's face flickered like a ghost. "If you find this," he said, "keep fighting. They used us," he said. "They called it duty. They called it sacrifice. They sold it." He sounded tired. He sounded like someone who had seen the machine behind the curtain. He did not finish every sentence. He left gaps like a map with missing roads. "Find the vault," he said. "There is proof. Keep the truth safe. If they come, do not let them bury it." The ticking clock turned into a plan. The ally revealed that my normal life was less normal than I had thought. Jonas had been watching more than the building. He had been holding the key. He pressed a second item into my palm, a folded, grainy photograph. Me and Miles as kids. A dog tag with a 6-digit code scratched into it. It matched a safe deposit number. It matched a server code. I felt the world tilt again. The ally had returned with authority. He had shown me the cavalry is not cavalry. He had given me the inheritance. We left my apartment like thieves. The city smelled like wet asphalt and old newspapers. The drive sat in my jacket like a sleeping thing. Jonas drove and said little. He had a look that said he had already paid a price. He told me a story in pieces. Miles worked at a contractor that did veteran reintegration programs. He helped place ex-soldiers into tech roles. He called those placements a second chance. Jonas had met him delivering a package in a hallway. The contractor had a darker division. It rewrote service records. It manufactured narratives. It made missing soldiers into heroes, and heroes into statistics that justified more contracts. It sold the tale, and then sold the silence.
"My father's work had been a cover," Jonas said. "It paid for me to be steady. It kept a quiet house. But our family had a thread into this thing deeper than I knew. It was not merely bureaucracy. It was inheritance." Jonas handed me a letter Miles had recorded but not played. The voice started as if it had been recorded years ago. Miles spoke about a meeting. Miles described handing over a file and being told the file would be buried.
He said he refused. He said he asked for protection and got a warning instead. The inheritance was 2 parts: a message, Miles's voice, and a key, the encrypted drive. The drive contained a ledger of transactions, names that matched contracts, locations, an audio clip that named people who profited when we lost people like Miles. This was not a small theft of truth. It was a corporate deep state. Corporations with informal power, with private security, with lawyers who turned truth into currency. They had engineered narratives to grease the wheels of policy and profit. The lie of the past settled on me like dust. My brother's life had been a bargaining chip. My own steady job had been part of a scaffolding that obscured the view. Miles had been trying to tear that scaffolding down. Jonas told me the contractor had been watching Miles, watching him because he knew too much. Jonas had kept an eye on Miles at his warning. Miles had made him promise. He had asked Jonas to wait for 3 if things fell apart. Jonas had seen the pattern of calls. He had heard the same static that had begun to thread through my life. He had acted, and he held the drive, waiting for a trusted hand. My hand was that trusted hand. My inheritance felt like a weapon and a wound. I had to choose what to do with it. We were not safe in the car. A black SUV shadowed us 2 blocks from the bank. Jonas swore softly and took a sharp turn. We lost them for a time and gained a new truth. "If you think you are ordinary," Jonas said, "you are wrong." He said it like a statement. The words landed with the weight of a verdict. He told me what I had not wanted to hear. It began with my birth records. My family name had been used as a shell for something else. There were projects within projects, files that had been redacted in ways that smelled like cover-ups. "You are not simply a records man," Jonas said. "You were a product of those who wanted something they could not find elsewhere. You carry a trait that they tried to replicate and weaponize." My head spun. I asked what trait. He said only that I had a memory pattern that could not be simulated, that I remembered trauma in a way that could be verified. "That is a poor paraphrase," I said, but Jonas nodded as if I had understood. Miles's disappearance had not been a random tragedy to remove him from a ledger. It was an assassination. He had been silenced because he knew where they had crossed the line. He had held knowledge that threatened replication and control. I had always thought the hole he left was an accident. Jonas said it was preventative. They had taken him to stop the truth from spreading. They had framed others as chaos to fund the fear that supported their contracts.
My identity twisted. The lie of the self is brutal. You can accept you were ordinary, or you can accept you were chosen, studied, cataloged. I found the scar behind my left ear and wondered if it had been placed there or earned in some fight forgotten by my own mind. The inversion was clear. I was not merely a product of the conspiracy. I was the original. I was the template they wanted to copy or to erase. "Why me?" I whispered. Jonas shrugged. "Because you remember. Because you feel truth in your bones, because you will not file it away. This is the part that kills you softly. You realize the grief was not only loss, it was a shield. My brother's death was a cover that kept me from seeing the shape of the machine. Now I could see. Now it wanted me."
We reached the sanctuary at night. It was an old archive vault repurposed. Thick concrete walls and a heavy steel door. It smelled of paper and dust. Jonas had keys that were not keys. He had contacts that had not voted for this plan, but had sympathy for a lost man. The drive fit into a slot of an old reader. My thumb hovered over the activation. The reader asked for verification. My military records had a biometric trace that matched a sequence in the drive. The vault recognized my name as a clearance it had not stated out loud. Inside, there was a file chest, an old projector, a laptop with a cracked screen. There were boxes labeled with contractor names and dates. There was a ledger that smelled like the truth. I inserted the drive. Miles's voice filled the small room. He had recorded everything. Names, dates, transfers. He had recorded conversations where policy was decided by what would sell. He had a list of incidents where bodies were abstracted into profit. I watched footage of servers, of people in suits smoking, of a message board where disasters were ranked by ROI. It was obscene in its banality. It was more than I could have imagined. The terminal presented a choice. It was not cinematic. It was an old interface with two files. One was labeled Acquisition. One was labeled Revelation. Acquisition was a protocol that meant survival. Hand the drive to a select few. Hide. Let the right channels decide what to do with it. Comply, and you live. It meant being invisible and controlled. Revelation was a protocol that meant burn the bridges, leak it all to the public, release the ledger, publish the footage, become public enemy number one. My palms sweated on the drive. I understood both options in muscle memory. In my head, Miles's voice said, "Do not let them bury it." I thought of the veterans whose stories I had filed away in my job. Names listed like inventory. I thought of Miles's missing face in a reflection. I thought of the families who had inherited silence. I could trade the truth to a broker that promised reform and trust no one. Or I could make the truth ugly and public and force the world to choose what it valued. My choice was quick. I chose Revelation. I opened the files and started a series of transfers. I set the ledger to replicate across multiple platforms. I bit my tongue until I tasted blood. I found the mechanism to anonymize the initial seed. I put the drive into flight. The alarms went off then. The sanctuary's old metal mouth screamed. Footsteps pounded. A camera light blinked red. We had minutes to leave. Jonas looked at me like a man who had expected this and also not. He did not say run. He said, go. I ran with the inheritance in my pocket and a new weight of responsibility on my shoulders.
We did not get far. The SUV found us at the loading dock. Men in suits moved like they had rehearsed every step. They moved with the confidence of those used to other people obeying. I could have given up the drive. I thought of the acquisition protocol. I imagined a life with no cameras in my hall, with quiet nights, with wounds numbed but still present. I saw Jonas walking away, and I saw Miles's face in a crowd fading like a photograph. I had one hand on the drive, the other on my chest. My fear was thick and sweet. Then something clicked. I was not running anymore, I thought. I was fighting. I ran past a man with a badge and grabbed a cart. A stack of boxes crashed, papers flew. The sound swallowed orders. Jonas and I moved through a door that led to a utility alley. We climbed a fire escape. The city opened like an angry sea below. They shot a window. Glass rained. I felt the sting of shards on my arm. I kept moving. The drive burned a path through my hip pocket. We reached a bridge with a view of the skyline. The city looked like a map held by someone who did not care if people were lost. Below, news choppers hovered like vultures. Jonas took the drive and split the data. He launched packets that seeded the ledger to dozens of nodes. He used techniques he did not explain because the jargon would have made me dizzy. He said, "Trust the spread." He said, once it is public, they cannot bury it without digging up more. My throat thickened. My body was exhausted. My plan had been to expose. My plan had not included survival. I felt both alive and a living target. We separated. Jonas told me to disappear. He handed me a folded paper with names and safe houses. He said, "Go find whoever you can trust." He said, "Keep the truth moving." "I think you know the price," he said. Then he put his hand on my shoulder for the first time in months and did not let go until the sirens drowned. I went to a small radio booth and recorded a statement. I spoke without notes. I said what Miles had said. I said their names. I said their crimes. I said the ledger would be available on multiple platforms. Then I uploaded the files to dozens of accounts. I sent encrypted keys to journalists. I sent the drive image to activists and to watchdogs. I did not spare anything. I made myself a permanent enemy for a truth I could not bury. By dawn, the story was everywhere. The channels that had once echoed the contractor's talking points were silent for a heartbeat, and then they began to pivot. Spin doctors worked like bees. Lawyers got in line. The contractor issued a terse denial. But the ledger had teeth. People read names. People with power were suddenly accountable to pressure they had thought would never come. Lawsuits bloomed. Investigations started like slow storms. The world reacted in human ways. People were furious. People were relieved. The price I paid was equal to the truth I delivered. I spent nights moving from safe house to safe house. I watched people I loved grow cautious. I grew older fast. My face gained weight that grief had given me. I watched a public that cheered for exposure and then turned away from the inconvenient mercy of consequences. Jonas vanished again. I got a letter with no return. Miles's drive spread like a contagion of light. I would not say it was worth it in simple terms. The veteran's sacrifice was not redeemed only by revelation. People suffered either way. Families existed in both stages. Some found closure. Some found ruin. The machine did not die overnight. Parts of it merely disguised themselves better. But the ledger made them answer. It made them plead. It dragged the hidden into daylight where it could be filed, audited, argued over, and at times punished. I still wake to the sound of a train. I still start at the phone. I still have scars that will not stop being sore in winter. My brother is not back. No vault can give me the whole of him. I have stubborn teeth and a ledger and a city that now knows the shape of the lie. If you believe one person can expose the truth no matter the cost, then keep asking questions. Keep digging.
Don't trust tidy narratives when lives hinge on them. The cavalry will not always come. Sometimes you are the cavalry. Sometimes your sacrifice is not repaid. That does not mean silence is the answer. If you want to see the documents we released, follow the links in the description. If you want to support veterans who risk truth, donate to Watchdogs and independent journalism. If you want more stories like this, subscribe and tell others. This is not just my story. It is Miles's. It is Jonas's. It is every person the machine tried to use as a number. I will keep exposing it. I will keep moving the files until they are no longer mine to hold. If you believe truth matters, if you believe a single voice can start an avalanche, share this. Do not let silence be the easy answer.